Hello and welcome to the Collapse Experiment, where I discuss the current. Bleh. Oh God! See, this is why editing is good. The current situation of the collapse that we are experiencing. No, my house is not falling in. That is actually the heating system, because it's oh so modern. There's a lot to go over today, as you can tell. A lot of this has to do, or is going to, be about the subway attack that happened yesterday. I did make a video, but didn't post it. Um, just didn't really, well, for one, I didn't have the time to edit it, and two, just didn't seem appropriate. It seemed like everybody was just posting stuff in order to, get those clicks and those likes, and that's just not me. So, first story, let's start off with that that horrible case of white rage on the subway. So people lost their crap because the NYPD would not say that the subway attack yesterday, in which a man uh, released a smoke bomb, put on a gas mask, and started shooting people. There was also explosive devices on the train car. This happened while the train was moving. Somehow the doors on the train had been locked so the people couldn't exit onto another train car to get away from the shooter. Uh, it I don't know, it kind of reminded me of Epstein in the sense that the cameras in the train weren't functioning. Weird. Was anybody found in the bathroom of the train car hanging from self-inflicted underwear marks? I don't know. But granted, overall, it's not necessarily a laughing matter. But yeah, so NYPD refused to say that it was a terrorist attack, in which case people took to Twitter saying, oh, it must have been a white guy because otherwise it'd be terrorism because only things from the Middle East are declared terrorist attacks. Well, I'd hate to say it, but if the suspect is a certain dark shade, it's also not terrorism because as we know, the worst terrorist group that we have in the United States right now is has three letters, and it's LMB, MBL. Anyways, if you move those letters around, that's the worst terrorist organization that we have. See, they go and they take advantage of poor black men being shot by the police and have tons of money donated to them so that they can funnel it to themselves in the purchase of mansions. Several mansions. No schools for black students, no college funds, um, no payment of funerals for said dead black men that they raised money on the behalf of. Um, yeah, they seem to do a whole hell of a lot of good for black folks, to use their language, in this country. But yeah, apparently this white person who shot up the train car was actually a 5'5" black man named Frank James, who's a BLM supporter. Huh. Didn't see that one coming. He was recently doing videos online talking about segregation, wanting segregation, saying that white people and black people should not be intermingling, and decided that he was going to take matters into his own hands. So, yeah, it's fairly interesting to see that that story has already been forgotten. Weird. Kind of reminds me of that whole Las Vegas shooting thing, in a sense. Do we even know what was on that suicide note that was left on the table that was clearly in the police evidence photos that were released? Do we even know what the hell that said? Probably had something to do with the Saudis that he was selling the guns to. All right. So Brooklyn shooter still at large. NYPD identifies suspect from credit card. Yeah, at the scene. This is one of those moments where I have to think that was this done on purpose? Like, how does somebody drop their credit card? Anybody? Anybody have an answer for that? Like, how does that happen? Did he like swipe it to get onto the subway? Is that how it works? And then he put it in his pocket, and while he's running around shooting people, it fell out of his pocket? Is that what happened? Did he purposely leave it so that it would be like, hey, it was this guy? Um, have no idea, but somehow they know it was him from a credit card. Okay. Let's see here. Biden's ghost gun rule is dead on arrival thanks to 0% receiver. I thought this was a very interesting title, so let's dive into this one. I know a lot of people, including me, are pissed off about this. This was through Zero Hedge, but it was written by the Machine Gun Nest. Not familiar what outlet that is. Yesterday, President Biden and the Department of Justice and the ATF, is it ATF or AFT? I'm getting confused because, as president, he should be the authority on this. And if it's AFT, that's, anyways, announce the details of the new 364-page rule for the redefinition. Notice this trick of frame or receiver. So yeah, again, they're trying to bypass previous laws and rules and court findings, and they just change the definition of something so that it fits what they want to do. In doing so, they have decided to attempt an illegal rewrite of the 1968 Gun Control Act. If you've been paying close attention to headlines the past few weeks, you may have noticed a surge in articles pertaining to ghost guns, or as AOC says, ghosts don't need guns because ghosts are dead. The corporate media has been setting up Biden for an easy win on guns with this new rule, likely because of Biden's low poll numbers heading into the midterms. Initially announced on April of 2021, almost a full year later, we're finally able to see what sort of erogenous gun control has been put together for the law-abiding gun owner. The rule stems from the gun control lobby's obsession with home-built firearms. The problem here, though, is that to regulate private-made firearms, or PMFs, as they're defined to the new rule, the ATF has to cast an extremely wide legal net. Why would they do that? In the 364-page rule, we can see that the Biden administration intends to ban ghost guns, by creating a new class of highly regulated items by redefining the term firearm to include parts and collections of parts that the ATF now considers to be readily convertible to functional firearms. Parts kits. The example used in the press conference was a Polymer 80 kit, which quickly sold out of all available models after the announcement of the rule change. I'm just curious, were there certain members of Congress or people close to Biden who are like, oh, is that what he's showing tomorrow? Do they have stock? It's important to note that from what we can tell from the rule change and opinion of others in the know, this rule does not ban possession of firearms made from 80% kits. It also does not mandate the serialization of those already made firearms or 3D printed items for personal use. What it does do is require the serialization of 80% kits that are in possession of federal firearms licensees, also known as FFLs, and manufacturers. It's interesting because the expected outcome of this rule, as Biden pitched, was the complete and absolute ban of ghost guns altogether. Well, I guess I'm gonna have to go out and get that muzzleloader kit that I've been wanting to get. Maybe some flintlocks. But yeah, it sounds like a lot of this is just bunk. And let's see here. Here's the irony. Now we're getting to it. Here's the irony of the situation, though. Regardless of how overly complex it is or how wide a legal net the ATF decides to cast, this rule change will have little to no effect. That's because of the 0% receiver. In response to the announcement of the Biden administration's proposed rule change, the defense distributed decided to shift its focus to the creation of 0% receivers. Cody Wilson of Defense Distributed had this to say about the new rule. The receiver rule is an illegal attempt to rewrite the GCA outside of Congress. Nevertheless, Ghost Gunner anticipated this maneuver and is now shipping 0% receivers, which perfectly defeat the rule from day one. Americans will always be able to build firearms in the privacy of their own home. Let's see here. And it goes on to talk about 3D printing. As of right now, the rule change has 120 days to take effect after it hits the Federal Register. Many groups, such as Gun Owners of America and Firearms Policy Coalition, have already announced their intent to sue the federal government over the new rule changes. Well, no shit, because it's not a law. Wasn't passed by Congress, and quite frankly, wasn't signed by the president either. It's just they're changing policies by redefining shit. Isn't that's not how our government is supposed to function. So that's a whole bunch, as Biden would say, that's a bunch of malarkey. Taiwan holds preparedness drills simulating Chinese attack on nuclear power plant. I wonder why they would focus on a nuclear power plant. It's not like anybody else just invaded a previously melted down power plant or anything. With an eye on what's been unfolding around Ukraine's nuclear power plants, Taiwan has conducted drills that simulated an emergency response following an imagined attack on nuclear power plants in order to enhance readiness for potential Chinese military invasion. About 500 people, including police, firefighters, power utility workers, and private volunteers, took part in the exercise held in the southern Taiwanese county of Pingtung, which took place late last week. So this is like a week after they released these survival manuals to their public, because Poland did that, Taiwan just recently did that. People are definitely preparing for the worst, and I don't blame them. Looks like Taiwan, considering how ballsy Nancy Pelosi was the other day, in keeping with her visit to Taiwan, that didn't happen. If you're thinking that happened, that didn't happen. she claimed to have caught COVID and canceled her trip to Taiwan after China threatened to have serious actions towards her if she does. So yeah, I think Taiwan is starting to realize that they are SOL if China decides to go in, and that's likely going to happen sometime this year. Oh, and the last article that we have here, but there are a few other things I'd like to discuss. President Biden accuses Putin of genocide, says evidence is mounting. Really? Okay. Let's see what evidence they have here. Hope it's not like WMDs. Following Russian President Putin's comments that peace talks with Ukraine are a dead end, and denied accusations being responsible for attacks in Mariupol and Bucha, U.S. President Biden took to the stage this afternoon. The stage. I thought he was in the garden, but whatever. To explain how he will fix the problem of Putin's price hike, which is still not trending. Oh, yes. Putin's price hike, that thing that we've been dealing with ever since Biden got into office. If he's calling himself Putin now, then it's accurate. But since he's still calling himself Biden, it's Biden's price hike. However, it appears the 79-year-old veered off script once again with the following comment. I already know this comment isn't accurate. There isn't a bunch of dots. These are coherent words. So, no, this is not an accurate comment. But he said, according to them, your family budget, your ability to fill up your tank, none of it should hinge on whether a dictator declares war and commits genocide half a world away. Okay, so that came from Biden, and but what about the dictator, the person who redefines certain words to pass? They're not even laws; they're regulations. And let's see here, increases the amount of farmland that we're not using during a time that everybody's talking about famine. So that's killing people. Shipping the food that we do have overseas, while we probably are going to need it here, that's all okay. And quite frankly, the most effective way to kill people is to starve them. I mean, look at Stalin in Ukraine, 1930s. You don't have to go around shooting people in order to kill them. So, President Biden calls war in Ukraine genocide. And that's just oh, look at that. CBS News on Twitter. Okay. Last month, Biden accused Putin of being a war criminal. He should know. He was the vice president for one. But this is the first time he has described the situation as a genocide, a term Ukrainian President Zelensky has used to describe the situation. He previously called Putin a butcher, okay, and called for his removal, saying that he cannot remain in power, implicitly calling for regime change. Yeah, okay, because that goes over so well in other countries. Oh boy. What else do we have here? And let the lawyers decide internationally whether or not it qualifies, but it sure seems that way to me. Lawyers? We have to let lawyers decide. Are you freaking serious? Like, and who are lawyers? They're just people that go to an expensive school to take a test, and now they get to decide different things? No. That sounds like a BS system to me. Oh boy. He went on to say that the evidence is mounting. It's no different than it was last week. The more evidence that is coming out, literally, the horrible things that the Russians have done in Ukraine, and we're going. Okay, this one's accurate because it doesn't make any sense, and we're gonna only learn more and more about the devastation. Okay, yeah, it's called war. It's not a very organized and awesome thing. It's for somebody who definitely went into Congress in their 20s and they've stayed there for, what are we looking at, like 60, 50 plus 60 years, somewhere around there he's been in office. Yeah, he's the guy who's going to know what war is like. So yeah, Biden's definitely trying to make the argument that the U.S. should get involved in this situation, which, yeah, especially with who we have in charge right now. You've got White Rage Milley, who's running the military. We've got Biden in office, who is just going to say the wrong country to invade when he does. I mean, this is the guy that said that Putin will never win over the hearts and minds of the Iranian people when talking about Ukraine. Um, it's going to be a shit show. Yeah. So we'll declare war on Russia, and then we'll send in troops into some place like I don't know, Pakistan. Pakistan would be like, "What the is going on?" And our guys would be like, "We were just told to come here. Like, Bin Laden's dead, right?" Oh man. So that was the last article. All of these can be found at thecollapseexperiment.com. But there's also other news of a fleet of cargo planes going from China to Serbia, of all places, filled with weapons and munitions. Serbia has a problem with, was it Kazakhstan? One of their neighboring countries. There's also military buildup in Latvia, where apparently there's a convoy of Russian trucks that are moving through that area towards Finland. Apparently, Russia's really pissed off at Finland, and from the video footage, this is their good stuff. This isn't the crap that they sent into Ukraine. There's a convoy of like their brand new military gear, their high grade stuff, heading towards Finland, who's now trying to join NATO. And Russia already said, hey, you try to pursue this, it's going to be the end of your country. And Finland's like, we'd like to join NATO, like, now. So I don't see how well this is all going to go over. As for Serbia, a lot of people, there's two theories to this. Either Serbia was going to use it to invade one of their neighboring countries with the backing of Russia, or it was China's way of going around the sanctions on Russia, giving them arms through Serbia, where Serbia then hands it over to Russian forces to use in Ukraine. Those are the two theories that I heard. It just would not surprise me. Kosovo, Serbia and Kosovo, they do not acknowledge Kosovo. That's what it is. Because of the separation of that whole region during the 90s. I believe one is Christian and one is Muslim. That was the big split. But it sounds like either way, other parts of Europe are just about to spark, and it's not looking good. When it comes to the food shortage situation, spring is here. The war doesn't look like it's going to settle down at any point, which means planting is not going to be done, which means all this planting for wheat and all the other grains that are produced in Ukraine, and because Ukraine supplies a lot of stuff to Africa, unfortunately, Ukraine and Russia, a lot of that's not being planted, and that's 30% of the market. So if they're not planting, there's nothing being harvested in the fall, which means it's going to be a rough winter. China is seeing issues with their planting season right now. I even saw cases of fake seed that were being shipped, and people were trying to plant these fake seeds, which of course don't grow into anything. There was a case of that in Mongolia, but they're worried about either bad or fake seed being sold and used in China. And the planting season as of right now is just horrible. China, it doesn't look like is going to be producing all that much. If anybody has any questions or comments, post them in the chat. And as for me, my recent updates, well, let's see here. Oh, yeah, there's that credit card fraud that I was dealing with this morning. I know I said I wasn't trying to unnecessarily spend any money. I wasn't expecting any help on that. People. So yeah, I had to deal with that this morning. I think the biggest red flag is the fact that I haven't used my card in probably a week. So when they say, "Hey, did you do this?" and I'm like, "When?" Like, that was the biggest sign right there. Yeah, so there's dealing with that. All the garden beds are plowed. Working on compost and getting that into the garden rows. So far, radishes are planted. Green onions. Did have garlic that came up from last year, but no bulbs. So I basically just split those, replanted those. They are supposed to be harvested in the spring. So it's one of those plants where you plant the individual bulbs in the fall. They go through the winter. When they start to come up in the spring, when you get that full stalk is when you harvest the garlic, and you should get a nice sized bulb. But it's one of those plants I'm still trying to figure out for the most part. Do have some onions going. Um, Trying to get some stuff started in the window. I'm doing that a little later than I did the previous years because we do tend to have a late frost where I live. So there is that to contend with. It's usually the last week of May, first week of June is planting season for here. Still need to build a new chicken coop and start a second run for the chickens. It looks like with the incubator, about 10 possibility of 10 chicks from the flock that we have now. Um, Rooster is still recuperating. He's spending a lot of time in the sun, hanging out by the feed. He is moving around. I'm just worried that he's permanently got like some injury with his leg. So doesn't look like he's going to be the same robust rooster that he was before. And I haven't seen any activity on the egg making side for on his behalf. So this might be the last batch of fertilized eggs we have going with with our flock, unless we get another rooster. So there always is that possibility, especially with 10 eggs going right now, that might possibly hatch. I have heard of people, they'll do like 6 or 8 eggs at one time, and then they'll end up with like 5 roosters and 1 hen out of the 6. Stuff like that is not uncommon. But yeah, so I think that's about it for now. I don't really have any plans today, considering the weather is going to be crap for the next couple days. It's supposed to be raining all day today, and that just leaves me to doing stuff inside the house. Could get some work done on that desk upstairs. Do some more sanding, finish that up, maybe get it out to the cabin. Definitely one possibility I could do. So nobody has any questions or comments. I will cut the feed and go about the rest of my day. And hopefully, there's no other stuff that happens today because yesterday was a big surprise. And yeah, I was busy. I was basically working from 8 a.m. until 10 o'clock last night. Didn't really get a break. So um, hopefully I can get some rest in today and work on some other projects. And keep on typing.